What's up, everybody? Julian here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make modern trance in style of DJ Heartstring. As usual, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets. One of the best ones I've heard on the market for the style is available at the top of the description on my website for just $5. It's super accessible. Anybody can grab this and make the best track of their life today. Plus, it really helps support me. But it's really about creating these awesome resources and giving back to the community so that we can all win and make the best tracks of our life. If you want to make the best track you've ever made, click the link at the top of the description. You can also click the links for my lessons, track finishing, and ghost production down there as well. It's a great way to really make the best tracks that you've ever made. Link is at the top of the description. Thanks for the support, everybody, and let's dive in. Alright, so we're at 145 BPM, a little bit faster, but it makes a nice groove. And the first thing we have here is this 909 kick. So yeah, this is just a nice punchy 909 kick right out of the drum machine. We're doing a few things to it. So first off, I have a pitch envelope. So what this is doing is this tiny amount of pitch envelope, and it can actually add a bit of punch to your kick. If you turn it off, it sounds like this. And then with it, it's really subtle, but it makes the kick a lot tighter, and it makes it kind of smack through the mix a bit better in the way that it needs to in these tracks. Like when I was studying these tracks, I noticed that kick is very tight and clicky. Right, so this pitch envelope just really helps tighten that up. I've got a little bit of saturation just blended. Here's without that. With it. It just adds that extra little bit of smack. And then we're cutting out actually a lot of bass from the kick. So that's another thing. When I studied these tracks, you know, the kick really doesn't have that much bass. Like usually in techno or even in kind of like old school trance, you would have a bit more sub in the kick. But yeah, you're like really want to cut this. If I turn this off, see what I mean? Because when you add this, you don't have that extra boom, boom, boom happening. And it kind of makes this sit better in the mix. And then we're just converting it to mono at the end because sometimes the EQ can add phasing stuff. Then we have the bassline. So for the actual notes on this, this is really what's doing the chord progression in the track, right? Like we have these other synths. You can see this is what's really just holding down that main progression. So what we're doing here is we're in the key of D minor, and it's root note, minor third, fifth, fourth. And then we're adding this ninth here too to kind of like walk up. So this is like a thing, you know, at the end of this bar, we have that like walking up note. And then at the end of this last bar too, there's that A there. You know, it just gives it a nice groove to kind of like jump up a note there. It's kind of like thinking of it more rhythmically and thinking of that extra note kind of like an extra percussive hit or something. Now, the bass is made of 2 layers. We have this kind of like standard trance pluck bass. And then this thing. Like a more deep house organ. So, for the trance bass, what it is we're using operator. We're not doing any FM though. If you put it on this setting, it makes it so there's no FM happening. It's just like all 4 oscillators side by side. And we have a saw wave, a sine wave, and then a square wave. All at the same octave. Like that. And then they're going into a low pass filter. With a bit of an envelope on it. Really short and plucky. And the reason why we use operator for this instead of the other Ableton synths is because operator has phase retrigger. So what do I mean by phase retrigger? As you may know, the phase on an oscillator is, or on a waveform, is like which spot you are on the waveform. Kind of like if you look at the saw wave down here, like, you know, you would have like right there, that's like that spot is the phase, right? So if you turn on the retrigger, what happens is it makes it restart at the same phase every single time. And this is really good for these like trancey basses. Like back in the day, that is kind of like part of that really like techie, clean sort of sound. Because as soon as you turn that off, check out what happens. If you don't have that, and it's just like random phase every time. See how the bass, like it's like changing every single time. It's like a slightly different sound. With the phase retrigger, you get that tight bass that's the same thing every single time. And that's the key for these trance basses. So we've got that, and then we're actually cutting some sub out of this, just like the kick. So here's without that. And then with it, it just makes it really airy. It might seem kind of crazy, but it really does work for these. And when I was studying these tracks, like on the Spectrum, I think they're cutting these out a lot because it just makes the whole thing a lot more airy. And it gives you, like when you're really fast like this, that tight, punchy groove. As soon as you start adding in all that sub and the bass and the kick, check out what happens. It's like it weighs the whole track down. This keeps everything really clean if you cut that. Then we're just converting it to mono, and then we have it sidechained to this little sidechain up top. Then we have the second bass. So this organ bass made using analog, right? It's like the classic sort of deep house organ. It layers really nicely over this trance bass though. Like I've heard Heartstring use this. And it ends up just sounding like one bass. But yeah, it's the two different layers. You want to get the steady, fat trance bass and then put this over top of it as a layer. So the secret to these basses is they're made with sine waves. And then what you're doing is you have two oscillators, one sine wave that's just the regular octave and the regular semitones, right? And then you have a second one, which is an octave and a fifth up, or 7 semitones. And that's the key. A lot of times people think it's just the fifth, but if you listen to that, it kind of gives you that sound, but it's not really what you're looking for. If you put that a whole octave and a fifth, and then still have that one at the regular octave, that's how you really get that classic deep house bass, right? So we've got that. And then I've got a low pass filter with an envelope. So here's without that. With it. It helps just give it a bit more of a pluck, right? We got the amp envelope like that. And then we're cutting out the bass on this one a lot because you really don't need that much, right? Like the trance bass is really doing all that low end. And you just want this to sit right on top. And kind of, it makes them sound more like one thing because they're not clashing. And then we're just side chaining that. Then we have kind of like the main groove drums. Right, so we just got a nice 909 hi-hat. Punchy and short clap. It's important that it's this like little short clap because that groove with the kick, right, you don't want a big long reverb clap. We've got this 909 rim shot, which you can hear is really busy, but it gives a really good groove against the bass. It's like, that's really like an example of different elements in the track working together. It's like the bass going don't, and then this thing bouncing off of that. Like you hear how that's like. It really adds a lot. That's something I noticed in a lot of their tracks. There's also these cowbells, which are used a ton in these types of tracks. And that really works together with the bass too. Right, so this is just the 707. I'm using the core kit for the cowbell. And I tuned it as well. You have to tune these to your bass line. Like, make sure it doesn't sound crazy, because you see, if you get this out of tune, it can throw the whole thing off. And then this is an 808 cowbell. Just at the end of the bar, right? Just classic drum machine sounds. And then they're going through a little bit of reverb and a high pass filter. And then we have some synth percussion. So I noticed a lot of this in these tracks as well. Just like percussion, you can very clearly tell is made with noise inside of a synthesizer. It's a great way to make kind of like your own percussion without just using a sample, right? And it goes really well like aesthetically with these kinds of drums too. So what's happening is it's two of them. There's this one, which just is like, like if I turn off the delay. Right? And then that plays over top of this one, which is, you know, kind of more frequent. So for the first one, it's made with analog. We're using a bit of noise and a low pass filter with an envelope on it. And that's what makes it so punchy. Also, we set the amp envelope really short like that, so it's like more like a percussive hit. And then I'm using filter delay. And if you have this pattern where it's just with like a really busy filter delay like this. So you get those hits that are played in MIDI, kind of like the loudest, but you get all this nice background percussion from the filter delay. And I turned down the panning too. You really don't want too much of that with this. And then we're high passing it a lot, because if you don't, there is a lot of low end in there that'll get in the way of your bass and stuff. And then we're side chaining it. And then for the second one, so this is like da-da-da-da-da-da. Right, just like super busy, and then the delay is working together with that. So this is white noise. We have a bandpass filter with an envelope a little bit. You really don't need that much envelope with the bandpass, because if you do too much, it just kind of becomes like, pew, pew, right? But we got that amp envelope like a bit shorter as well. And yeah, then just the delay and then side chaining it. It's really simple, but these add a lot of groove to these kind of tracks, and it's a good way to kind of like create your own percussion. Then we have the main lead. So what's happening is this is kind of playing these two different melodies. It's this main one down here. Right? And then there's like this high one on top of it that kind of contrasts it. And you can hear they kind of like, you know, it's like call and response in both of them. There's a call over here, and then a response over here. And to really like cement that, you can see even here, it's like ending on that note. And then the response starts on literally one semitone up from that. So it's like very much like call and response with that. And really, the main melody here though is this one. Those high notes really just kind of sit on top of it. You can see I turned the velocity down on them even, but it just adds that like really cool kind of futuristic thing. And also you can hear it's really bouncing off of what that lower one is doing. So we're in the key of D minor. If you look at these, it's really simple. Like here, okay, we got literally just a D minor chord, root note, fifth, and minor third. And then same thing, but one note down, the ninth. And then over here we walk up, right, and then it goes back up to that F. And then up here, same deal. It's like we're using, you know, minor third, root, fifth, fourth, fifth, sixth. Like it's all those same voices, but you can really create a lot with that. And when you have a lead like this, that's just kind of like, you know, this nice droning thing, and then you have the bass line kind of telling the chord progression under that. You can hear it makes something very epic when they play together. And that's really the key with these tracks, is like all these elements working together really, really well. It's not just like, how do I make a trance lead? It's like, how do I make a trance lead that works with the bass line? But the sound on this one is made with wavetable, so it's a saw wave. And then we've got another saw wave, but with a bit of pulse width on it. And you can see, so in terms of the modulation, we've got an envelope on the filter frequency on this low pass, as well as on the pulse width. So you're getting, it's just like a way to kind of make the saw wave not just like that standard dull saw wave that we've heard so many times. It's like little changes to that to just make it a bit more futuristic and exciting. We've got a bit of noise unison as well, a ton of that, which gives us this super cool future trance sort of thing. Then we've got some eighth note delay. Goes nicely with this. That's also got some reverb on it. And then we're just side chaining it. Really simple. You don't need that much processing if you just have a good sound. Then we have the second lead. So you can hear this just really fits together with what that other lead is doing, and also really well with the bass line. It's just this kind of like chill lead. You know, if you look at this musically, again, D minor, we're using the sixth, fifth, fourth, minor third, root note, another root note. The only voice I haven't used in any of the other stuff that's in here is this minor seventh. But yeah, again, it's just this cool rhythmic lead. It fits really well over that. And we're playing it. Another thing you'll notice is we're putting it up really, really high. And it's like a very different sound. So it's a square wave with like a bunch of classic unison. But then I have this auto pan, which is not actually panning because the phase is at 0. So it's doing these like 16th note, like da 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 da. So you can hear when you play it against the other lead, even though they're both similar, you get two very, very different sounds, and they're not going to clash, right? And then that's just got a bit of reverb, sidechain, and then a high-pass filter. The last element here is this pad. Kind of like apocalyptic sounding, right? And I'll play that against the bassline chord progression so you can hear it. So this is really operating on this concept of kind of like having a few different melodies stacked together to create these chords. Because this is not the chord progression, obviously. It's contrasting that, and it plays against it, and it kind of gives you something unique so that you can hear that chord progression, you can hear this, and they're going to fit together really well and create something beautiful, but it's not just like, oh, this is the same chord progression, right? So again, like I said, it's the concept of like different melodies stacking together. So for example, here we're going, so if we're in D minor, it's root note, minor 7th, 6th, 5th, right? And then up here, like we're doing like a 4th, 5th, 6th, 5th. And then, like, you could even look at these, like, right? And then just, like, droning the D down there as well. So, again, you see how it's all these little melodies that come together, and that's really how you build this. You have to think in terms of, like, melodically, what is really good. Like, this, it's always going to work really well if you go 4th, 5th, 6th, 5th, like, right? And then if you just walk down the scale down here, you know, you can create these melodies very easily, especially if you know these scales, or even, you don't even have to really know it. You could just be looking at this scale online, you know, on like another screen or something and follow that. But then when you stack those melodies together, you get something beautiful, and then you combine that with the main chord progression. And it's just going to be like this really great harmonic combination. Now, for the sound on this one, it's made using Operator. I'll show you just the original patch, and then we'll just go through the effects here and add them one by one. So this is the sound coming right out of Operator. So this is FM pad I created. What it is, it's a square 32, which is basically a square wave with some of the harmonics taken out. And then we're doing FM from 2 sine waves. You can see we've set the envelopes like pretty standard with those. The third one's got a little bit more of a pluck, so you hear that. Like at the start of the sound. Kind of make it like really hit, right? We got the second one an octave down, and then it's detuned a little bit. And with FM, if you do some detuning, that's how you get that kind of like motion. Like if we turn off the detune, see, it's really straight, and it's still cool, but it's definitely like not as exciting. Right? So we've got that, and then we have a low pass filter as well. If I turn that off, see, it's a bit sharp. So when you low pass it to kind of just make it a more chill pad. And then I'm using the spectral resonator. You see, this is pretty heavy. I've got the frequency down, and it's on the, I've got the unison up, so it's giving you this like crazy kind of like unison, like wash thing. This is a really cool effect. I mean, it's great for something like this because you can really just bring that to life and take what is a cool sound and make it fit really well. And this is also giving it a bit of stereo width and kind of just making it fit a little bit better in the track, I think. We've got a bit of chorus, which gives it that super like old school trancey kind of like, you know, crusty chorus, which is cool. A bit of reverb, which also just helps it kind of smooth out. A high pass filter, because as you can probably hear, there's a lot of low end once you add that spectral resonator. And sometimes the FM stuff can add like weird low end too once you start like bringing those oscillators in. And then just the side chain, and that is it for the pad. And that's going to be be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets. The entire template is available at the top of the description on my website. Definitely go grab that. It really helps support me. If you guys enjoy these videos, I'm telling you, I don't make a whole lot off of YouTube. You would laugh if you saw what the ad money looks like. It's crazy what they're doing on here. But with these templates and with the samples and MIDI and presets, I'm able to keep going and keep bringing you guys a ton of new tutorials all the time and showing you these styles, demystifying it, and making accessible templates for you guys to make the best music of your life. If you want to make the best track you've ever made, go grab this right now. I promise it's really going to help you out. This is not just snake oil. I've really put the time in, and this stuff really will take you to the next level. Thank you so much for the support, everybody. Check out my lessons and my ghost production and track finishing as well in the description to take your tracks even further. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another video.